Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Hair Healer podcast. I am with my, how do we put this? Synchronicity New Soul Connection, Stacy Dicker, and you are down in North Carolina, South
South,
Carolina.
South Carolina. Yep.
So say hello, say
New
hello to our
resident.
listeners.
Hello, listeners,
Now
hair healer
tell,
listeners.
tell everyone how you heard about me, because I think that let's talk about that synchronicity.
So my dear friend Martha lives in Philly, and she was my book coach, and
Oh,
she reads the Inquirer, obviously. And when she saw your article, she sent it to me via email and said, I can absolutely tell that you guys are, I don't remember how exactly she put it, but when I wrote her back, I was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful you put me in touch with this person. She's a Libra. So of course she's always like, you should meet so-and-so.
of
You should
course.
meet so. She's the best at that. And so here we are.
At matchmaking, and here we are, and you
Yeah.
reached out to me, and I was so touched. I was like, oh my God, I can't thank you. It was meant, and we've been trying life the last 6 months, as we know.
Mhm.
Astrologically, everything has been intense and things have been crazy. How have you been through that?
I am so glad I had texted you this, that I'm so glad for the timing, because you would have gotten a really different me if we would have talked
Really? What
even a
what
few months
version of
ago.
you?
Well, because there was a lot of collective
Yeah.
stuff
Oh
obviously
yeah.
going on, and but also personal. I feel like those of us who are in normal personal crisis times, like for you, you just went through your Saturn return. I'm in my mid 40s, so it's just been like one thing on top of another. My Uranus opposition was the thing that kicked it. I got breast cancer, and it like
Oh my God,
pulled it
when was that?
red in 2000, December of 2014 was when I
Okay.
was diagnosed. So, but
How's
that
that
kind of
journey been?
pulled the thread. Knock on wood, it's
Knocking
over,
on wood. Amazing.
which
Beautiful.
is great. But that was the beginning of, like, I had two older pups that I had to put down within 2 years
Oh
of
my
each
God.
other. And Trump, I mean, I don't mean to
I
make
know.
this a big political thing, but that really fucked me up.
I
And
mean,
I
a lot
think
of our listeners aren't giant Trump supporters, so
I
I'm sure.
would imagine. And I'm trying really hard. I actually am so proud of myself. During the election, I was texting with a girlfriend of mine, and we were both getting super, pissed and anxious. And it felt like
Yeah.
PTSD all over again as
Yeah.
the returns were coming in. And we were going back and forth like, who are these people? And they vote against their own interests, and bad. We're freaking out. And then I had this moment where I was like, and I happened to text it to her, and I'm so glad I did. I was like, if we win, I am willing to forgive everybody.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
she wrote back and she goes, I've been saying that same thing. That's what made me realize it was really significant. I was like, this is what we're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
This is how it's supposed to be, that you've got to assume people are sane, and they've got their own reasons for deciding what they do and prioritizing what they do. And we've got to get on a better page. So I personally am really working. The other day we were in the car and saw a Trump bumper sticker, and I started up and I was like, no, delete,
No, delete.
Control Z. I'm not doing that anymore.
Delete and send them love. That's often my how I fight
Right.
things when I fight that anger or hate for anyone or anything is I just like, "Oh, fuck, I'll send them love."
I think that's the best. I mean, I said this to you when we were emailing about it, that I think your way of thinking about it was so great. I feel like
Aw.
you're telling me how, about sending light and love out, and like best vibration possible for the election. I feel like that kind of started me on, I don't know, just a more like love
Aw.
filled. Seriously, I feel like that energy, that was so helpful, because I mean,
Well,
it's, knock on wood, so far so good. It's only
thank
been
you.
like a couple of weeks, but
Thank you. Thank
or weeks.
you. Well, let's tell everyone why you would be interested in reaching out to me and being on a podcast, because as you know, as you've been following this, I am on my path to becoming an astrologer and super interested in astrology. And
Mm-hmm.
you have a book, which is amazing. Now, listen, I'm like, I hope I say this right also. If you listen, I have ADHD and a slight form of dyslexia, so I say things a little bit. So, the book title is Psychology. Like, no,
Psychstrology.
thank you, Psychtrology. I cannot say it. Say it again.
Psychstrology.
Thank you. Psychstrology. I just
Yeah.
have to say it
Yep.
5 times and I got it.
Yep. I'm trying to
Wow.
bring them closer together. That's my
Yes.
thinking, is like psychology and astrology. And obviously there is psychological astrology. It's not like I'm
Yes.
the first person to think of this, but just the whole idea that these guys are way too far apart. And
Way too far apart.
no reason for
Can
it.
I tell you, that's what I loved about you reaching out to me, and what I loved about this book is that on my path, one of my callings is basically using, astrology for that and for like spiritual purposes. And I always looked at astrology as the psychiatry of our energy. And I always wanted to be a psychiatrist, but I could never do anything in school. I couldn't even sit and write anything with ADHD. So I'm like, this is my way of kind of helping people in that therapeutic way. And I'm like, oh my God, you have merged this. So what got you on your journey first, astrology or psychiatry?
Psychology.
Psychology,
but astrology did actually. I found astrology when I was a lot younger. I was probably like, when did Love Signs come out? I was probably like 11. Do you remember that book, Linda?
No.
I mean, you're younger. Linda Goodman's Love Signs. It was this.
I heard about it.
Yeah, it was just a really popular book at the time. And I just was, like I said, I would read about Capricorn because I was so, it's the path of Capricorn, the lone goat. But I always just felt like I didn't even understand myself.
Yeah.
Nobody else seemed to understand me either. And so there was something about it that, it wasn't like I was happy with it, like I said before, but at least it was like there, like somebody could say something that helped me like, oh, well, I'm a Capricorn, and because I was a double Capricorn, it was so strong that I feel like that was.
And you didn't want to let anyone help you, of course, right?
Yeah, of course not. Of course not. God, no. Or even let on I was struggling.
Right. Yes.
So I got into astrology when I was young. And then when I got into psychology later, I never thought the two would meet. The kind of program I got into was so rigorous and research oriented and could not be like a more hostile climate.
Oh my God. So did you just like kind of push the astrology behind you then? And when you first went into that,
I still had it. I still used it all the time. Like my friends all knew me.
But you didn't merge it yet in work.
No, it took me a long time. I remember the first client that I looked up her moon sign, she was driving me insane. And I looked it up and it was actually Taurus. It was actually same as mine. And so I was like, oh, it helped me actually.
She was triggering all those things in your emotional.
Mm-hmm. But I didn't actually tell her about it because I don't think she would have been open to it. But it was the first time that I started actually because I would look up. It was always guys. Guys were always the most perplexing. My career was like not the thing that I struggled to. A little bit. I went in a wrong direction at first, but astrology always helped me in relationships and with my family.
Yeah.
Too. And so when I realized like I can look up my clients' moon signs too,
And when you saw her, you probably had so much instant insight because of your own, right? The Taurus moon in yourself. You were like, oh, wait, I actually understand her now.
Totally. That was, and it's always that, right? The people that drive us the craziest are always the ones that are the most like us. We project all our shit into them and hate them for it.
Can I tell you, as a Gemini sun, I instantly gravitate to Geminis. And for a long time, I really fought off Virgos. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 18, 17 like that. And I was like, I realized that I was a Virgo rising and a Virgo moon. And I was like, and I don't know if there's anything, maybe you can tell me this. It's just like some theology thought or whatever, philosophy thoughts about this. But I feel like as I entered my Saturn return and came out of it, I became much more rising sign minded. I feel like I went on my journey. I still have the Gemini in me, but I really took on the rising strong. All of a sudden I feel like the sun was running my show, the Gemini now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it totally does. I think that one of the reasons I love astrology so much, and I think Jung too, is that for therapists, for psychologists, it's like there's a way that we unfold and develop, and you see that in a birth chart. And so I'm not at all surprised to hear that. I think the Saturn return is that's why I have a long chapter in there, because most of my clients I saw either on the front end and during or during
the middle. What was your Saturn return like?
Oh God, I met my now ex-husband in my Saturn return. I
Me
also
too.
started my practice. I know, I heard you say
Oh,
that on your
okay.
podcast.
Okay.
Yes, yes. I mean, it was very eventful, and not in a good way, but professionally it was good
Yeah.
because professionally I opened my practice, and that
Was it
really
opposite?
did
Like
good.
I had Saturn opposite my Venus retrograde, so it changed not only my looks, it changed my it changed
Relationships.
and my creativity. I went from hair to this media.
I know, I know. I mean, I think that's awesome. For what it's worth, I think having gone the therapist route, I mean, you're talking to me after 20 years of doing it, but I think it's great that you're coming at it from a different angle because there is a level of burnout that comes with this job that
Yeah.
you're going to have your own version of it because just working with people is exhausting,
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's worth it, but relating is a lot and holding people's pain and, you try and
You
learn how to
try.
not take it. You're an empath too,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, try and just figure out how to not, take it all in.
And now was
Even
your
though it's
Saturn
helping.
opposite Venus or was Venus
So
in there in
mine
this?
was opposite Mars. I have
Oh.
Saturn opposite Mars. I have my Saturn's in
Mm.
Gemini,
Mm.
and my Mars is in Sag.
Wow.
Uh-huh. And I feel that. I feel like I remember when I first found out that my Mars was in Sag, I was like, oh, because I have this constant feeling of being like thwarted. Like I'm always like trying to move too fast into something and
Into
life like
something.
cuts me off in some way. And I
How
feel
about
like
when
it's
you
like,
argue and your aggressions?
oh, oh my God. I mean, both my parents are hotheads. So I feel
Are
like
they?
that's one of those, like, it was learned in addition to being in my chart. But oh God, that is something I have just try and like breathe and
And
accept and
accept.
right.
So now is astrology fully integrated into your program into
No,
client? No,
no, because so many people can't make space for it.
I know, not
Not
yet.
completely. I feel like the majority of people, but it just happened where I brought something up to a long-term client. She was kind of like hostile to it. And
Shiva.
yes,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things that there have only been probably, I was trying to think about this, maybe 3 or 4 clients. And that's not much when you think of how many clients I've had. There have probably
Wow,
been
really?
3 or 4. Well, I would say there have been probably like 20 who have been open to some degree of
Yeah.
using it. But 3 or 4 only where I've actually had their chart in front of me and we've talked about what each of the pieces mean. It's so rare that because I have people who met me in a totally different, like they think of me in a totally different way. So when I'm bringing this up, they're kind of like,
Ah,
oh, I'm bargaining for this. Like, what are you
yeah.
talking about?
Wow.
So,
So what
yeah.
about your colleagues or people that you were in school with when you would started? Do you ever
I
talk about it
mean,
with them? Did you have any when you wrote
I
the
talk
book?
about it with everyone, but I have like almost no like
You're a
people
lone
on
wolf
my
on your.
team. Yeah. There's one girlfriend who I went to high school or to grad school with, who's a psychologist. Also, she's one of the people who endorsed it on the back, Heather LaChance. She was the only one. I remember talking to her early on. We weren't the same year. I was, I think 1 or 2 years ahead of her in school, but we met in the copy room one time and started talking about it and just were like, because we were the only 2 people in this sea of, scientists who are, and it pisses me off because there's so much evidence for it.
So
Like
much.
if you're paying attention, it's so easy to
I feel
see.
like 2020 though, and this is now 2021 that people are going to be listening to this, but I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of people became more open-minded to it.
I agree. I mean, I feel like there's something about this time
Ooh.
that is really like just ripe for
We're
shifting, I
we're
think.
shifting. We're in an energy time loop. By the time this ends, let's say I feel like we're in a slow reemergence now in 2021, like not right now, but moving through that, and I think 2022 like we'll get sort of back to the new normal and when that hits though, we're going to be like 15 years in the future. Do you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
so
I
much has
fucking hope
changed
so.
in so
God, I
many
hope so.
ways.
That would be so fantastic. I
And
so hope
it's
you're
like the
right.
rise of the light workers right now.
Oh my God, I so hope you're right. That was actually when the election was happening. I had this intuitive hit where I thought, I think that this is going to go to the side that is going to be the more gracious winner, like the side that is not going to gloat and think like fuck you guys, we won, but to
Yeah.
like actually try and use this in a positive way. And I do think that the side that won was the side that was more likely to use it in that way. And I feel like it totally fits with what you're talking about.
Yeah. And everything shifts. We'll shift out of this, you know. So what got you into writing this book?
So I had a dream. It's funny you asked this because also when I told you about, I know you're into dreams too, right?
Oh yeah. A lot comes to me in dreams.
Same. I'm so grateful for dreams and having discovered their power. It's funny that you asked this because this is one of the things about when I was saying the timing was good. This is one of the things I was thinking about. And I actually have been thinking about the dream. So the dream was that, there's a little bit of backstory for this that gave me some context for why I think I knew what it meant so quickly. One of my girlfriends who is psychic, she comes back into play at the end because she gave me a piece of advice that was really amazing. But she had told me I was going to write a book. I've known her since I was.
When did she first tell you that you were going to write a book?
When I was like 22, maybe. And I was like, you are insane. I hate writing. I was in grad school for so long.
You're like, no way.
Wrong direction. And that grad school had required a lot of writing. Then when I went into the right one for psychology, that required a lot of writing. Yeah. I was like, no way. So I maybe was more like 25, let's say. But anyway, so I had just seen her. That day we had gone to brunch and we went to our favorite place in Denver and had this waitress who I adore, who's also really into astrology. And so we were all chatting about astrology and having this really good, vibrant conversation. And Elizabeth, actually, my girlfriend Elizabeth, brought up the book that day. And I specifically said that day, I have no idea what I would even write about. I don't know what you even see. Right. So that night, so this is part of why I just knew right away what the dream was about. That night I had a dream and I remember like one scene and then some words that were associated with it. But the scene was Carl Jung in a tracksuit. He was wearing a white tracksuit with red stripes. Wow. And we were on a track and he handed me the baton in a relay race. And that was it.
Oh my God.
And when I woke up, and there was something about, and the words were strange to me because I use the word vibe all the time, but I never use the word vibration. It's just not a word that I think probably from being so trained and, knowing that people are going to like glaze over if I say that word. But it was about raising the vibration of astrology. That was the sentiment of the dream. And so when I was like first waking up, I told my husband, Jeremy, about it. And I went like this. I said, if I were going to write a book, I know what it would be about. It'd be something about, and I went like this, weaving psychology and astrology.
Wow.
And then it ended up happening.
Here we are. Do you know what's funny about you say raise your vibration is when I started doing I started a couple years ago doing media videos and stuff. And like the videos I would do every week were called raise your vibration, or maybe it's just raise your vibe. Yeah.
That's so
Can't remember
funny.
now. Raise your vibration. So when you said that, so when did this book come out? So when was that?
So it came out November of 19.
November 19th. When did you start writing it? When was from that moment? When was that to when it came out?
So that dream was February 7th of 18.
Wow, you did that fast.
Well, you would think, but for me as a Capricorn, that took forever.
So what did you just sit down and just start typing?
No, what I did was I started writing. I started journaling, which was actually so helpful, and I still do it. But journaling is really what unlocked like a lot of the like what I wanted to say and how I wanted to structure it. Right. I think I remember you saying that, and I feel like that is such a huge deal. I want to ultimately, not like this is the ultimate thing I want to do, but eventually I do want to do this part of what I had envisioned moving down here is I want to do retreats.
Yes.
And I want the one thing that I want people to come away with is keeping a fucking journal.
I love that.
Right. Especially in the mornings, because that way you can capture dreams. But if one thing changes, you will have a journal and write in it. Like even 3 or 4 times a week is
That's what I usually do, like 3 times. And it does. And it's something about the energy shifts or something when you take from this to put it to pen, you know, whether you're manifesting or anything, just getting rid of energy, like it's huge.
Yep. Totally.
So your book just started with your notes, just doing the notebook. Written.
So, yep. So I would either, I had my morning pages, I call them, because there's a book, The Artist's Way, where she calls them morning pages. And so I had my morning pages, and I would also just take notes in another notebook where I would just write down thoughts of things I want to make sure are in there somewhere. And I mean, that's part of what makes it so hard, is that it's like you're synthesizing. Plus, it's so hard having written a book. The second it's out, you're like, fuck, I like don't even know that I think it that way anymore. Like there are so many things that I feel like I've read and learned, and just it's hard to evolve when you feel like you've got something that's like set into, you know, it's just, I feel like that's one of the hardest things about having done it, is all the stuff that was happening during the writing process still happens, but now I have nowhere to update it. You know what I mean? It's just like, shit, I wish I'd said that. Shit, I wish I hadn't said that. You know, like,
wow.
It's a really weird.
So how'd you feel in that moment when it was like, okay, it's being released tomorrow?
I mean, it was so surreal. It was that the day that the proof came in the mail, that was the day that I was just like I knew it was a book, but like you're holding it in your hand.
Wow.
I mean, it's nuts.
Wow.
So here's what's so funny. So I hadn't thought about that dream in a while, until maybe like, I want to say this just happened. Well, when was the election? 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah.
So this has happened since then, which I find ironic, because I think it's like, it just shows how depression like just puts this like thing over you. And then when it can get lifted, it's like, all that stuff is still there, you know, like you still care about the stuff you used to care about, and once you have more energy for it.
Yeah.
So I had this idea that I think is insane. And I kind of hope I don't end up deciding to do it, but I kind of feel like I probably will, just knowing me. But I think what I want to do. So I was like reflecting back on that dream again. So you may know this already. Jung did a bunch of research on horoscopes. Did you know this? He took, he was looking at couples.
Oh,
he was looking at couples, synastry. So he was testing the theory that proved to be true, that there was a beneficial conjunction involving the moon very often in couples that were together. I think it was for 10 years.
Oh my God, you're so funny, because I want to keep going into that, so don't lose that thought. But I have parts of the talking about that I wanted to ask you in your book. So go ahead, talk about the conjunction right there. Talk about it.
So he did research, but it was.
So we often found the moon sign with the rising. Is that what in the book?
He found that the moon of one person is conjunct with the moon, sun, or rising of the other very often.
When it's like a successful partnership.
Yes. I think he used 10 years or more.
For people together for 10 years or more?
Yes. Or I think married for 10 years.
Does he have a book on just that of the...
No, he has, there are 2 different books that have come out just in the last few years. I mean, to your point, I think astrology is really like something has shifted about it. But so there are 2 different sources where people have compiled all of his writings on astrology, but there's no place that he has it laid out like that. I mean, he wasn't very open about it, honestly. Wow. He kind of downplayed. I mean, it's crazy how taboo it still is, and how much people, it's like, my theory is that it's because it's so real that people can't make space for it.
They can't make space for it. And some people, I mean, and it sounds like you were the same way. I've been born with like seeing the other world. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how I've always gone through it. And so I think people that don't have that aren't born naturally with it, or just, it's like, what do you mean? Like that can't be logical.
Totally. And yeah, I mean, I agree. I think those of us who are kind of thrust into like, we don't understand something, but it's like, you've got to like figure it out.
You got to figure it out.
You do.
You got to figure it out. So you're, so funny you say that, because it took, again, one of the first things I didn't realize is Pisces always drove me crazy, right? But it's opposite Virgo, but Pisces, it rules my house of marriage. And so was always attracting in my fight like Pisces into like relationships with that.
Well, so this is funny. What you're saying is I want to hear what you think about my thought process. So, so the thought process I had, so there's not been, there's been a bunch of research on astrology, and there's actually a journal correlation that's peer reviewed and is designated entirely to astrological research, but there isn't any in psychological journals. There's not good research in psychological journals on astrology. And I think I maybe want to try and do a study.
Yes.
With like a lot of data, because you need a lot of data to have enough power.
I'll be part of your study.
Statistically. Well, I would hope you would. And also if this is really going to happen, I'm going to want to drive people to contribute data. So I'm going to be calling on you to ask your listeners.
Oh my God. Yes.
Right? So what the two things that I'm thinking about, one of them has to do with parents and kids, but the other one has to do with our romantic choices over time. And do we pick the same people over and over? And then if you have the parent thing, you can also look, do we pick our parents? What's some way that we pick our parents?
Well, it's funny you said that, because again, as we started talking, do you hear my son? Oh my God. He didn't
Which
listen.
one is that?
The younger one. Hold on, everyone's listening.
All Earth.
Excuse me, Remington. I'm doing my podcast. What do you need down here? Cheerios at 9:50. Good look at my good parenting. No, I'll bring them up in a couple minutes. Yes, you can get them. Come down. I'm just gonna leave this shit in there too. Do not edit it out. So both of my kids.
Real life.
I know, right? This is real life. We're trying to do it. My kids are upstairs. No one. They're locked in their bedroom. No, I'm kidding. They're not locked. Okay. Shh. So both of my kids actually have their moon, which represents the mom, in their ninth house, which I thought. Oh my
God.
And both of them, and it's just this. Look at them. Look at me. Look at the mother. Right. The ninth house rules spirituality, higher learning for those that don't know, and that's what my whole life is in their environment. Is that so? To go with that connection.
So funny. Yep.
Go ahead.
That seems to be the moon and the mother and child's connection through the moon. There's an Australian study. There's an Australian astrologer who wrote a study up and did a whole bunch of exploratory. I think he knows there's a kindred soul in there that I'm like.
I think he does.
Signs, like he's
I
like
think
drawn,
he does.
like magnetic.
He is. He's like, is that another Capricorn, the Taurus? You guys are just like right there.
Oh, poor guy. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
I know we're talking about the book. We're talking about the mother, daughter, the mother. Yeah.
And there was an Australian astrologer who did a bunch of exploratory, like she collected a bunch of data and then had a number of exploratory hypotheses. And what you're saying, the mother moon, the mother connection between the mother's moon and the child's moon, or somewhere in the child's chart, is really that basically the beneficial conjunction thing I just described, where the mother's moon is represented in the child's chart somewhere. That was very strong.
That was very well. That's something I wrote down, and normally I don't write down my questions. I didn't really, but since you had a book, I wrote down things that interest me, and you already are talking about that. But I said kind of like just a thought on that. It really shows, looking through what you said and looking at my own chart and my kids' chart, like that. To me is really showing, and I think it'd be interesting. You said you did a study. It's showing that we reincarnate together. I mean, if that's what you believe, reincarnation, but I'm totally like looking through like their chart and seeing like we reincarnate. It's crazy to just see like the blueprint right there.
Totally. But the thing that I think is so hard about studying astrology is that it's so complicated. I mean, as you know, there's so such much a black hole shit that accounts for everything. So like, I feel like one thing I want to say, speaking to your point, I think it varies by family, because I think there are certain of us who were not born in, actually an astrologer was the first person who ever told me that when I was like 19, that I was not born into, like, I didn't have allies in my family. Exactly. I was kind of like not connected, which
Remy was just tapping on the floor looking at me. No, please go upstairs. They're going up. Sorry again, everyone listening. Real life. What did he say? What did the astrologer say?
That I wasn't connected to anybody in my family. It was a she, but
sorry. And that was true?
Yeah, it was totally true. I mean, they're all air and fire.
Oh.
So I think that's the thing is I think just like you know, in life, there are plenty of people who are connected to their families and have some degree of being able to like communicate with one or both parents or their siblings. I think there are also people who have a whole different thing there. I think we all choose our charts and our paths and our families and stuff, but I don't think we always choose them with the same degree of ease and compatibility. So that's part of what I think is so complex about studying this shit is that there's so many configurations and it's so elusive. It's funny how like it's not so in this Australian study, she was talking about how it'll be the case where like there will be something where like they had to use old rulership in addition to new rulership because it would be like if you were assuming something would be conjunct and then it was like, no, it wasn't Aries, it was Scorpio. But if you use the old rulership, it's Mars, right? So I
do Hellenistic astrology. So that's I practice. And I think there's so much even there just to study. Then I feel modern astrology just throws so much extra stuff in there.
Totally. Right. Totally.
So much extra stuff.
That's why this book was hard to write in a certain way. I feel like the way I intended it at first is it changed a lot in the hands of my editor. And not that I think this was a bad thing. I think she was right. But
did you use an editor that was also new astrology?
No, she was a skeptic, which actually was helpful in a way, but she was an astronomer. How funny was that?
That's funny.
Synchronicity. Wasn't that so random?
Yes.
So it was great.
Did you make a little bit of a believer out of her?
No, I don't think at all. That's the thing is people are so freaking resistant. It just blows my mind. I don't get but this is the thing. This is why I feel like we need fucking math. We need numbers. People apparently, even though I still will tell people numbers that they seem to like, I don't know if you saw this in the book, but one thing this is one of many of these little synchronistic coincidences, but do you know who Antonin Scalia was?
No.
He was a Supreme Court justice.
Okay.
So you know who RBG was, obviously.
Yeah.
So RBG and Scalia were on completely polar opposite sides of every single case. He was super conservative. She was super liberal. But they were known to be the best of friends.
That's funny.
They travel internationally together. They celebrated New Year's together every year. They both loved opera. Well, and so I was watching this documentary about her, and the voiceover guy is like, something like, how could that be that we don't know why they were such close friends, but they were. And I'm like, I had just looked him up and I'm like, they both had Pisces Sun and Scorpio Moon. Like that's why.
Oh, and that's Scorpio Moon too. Both of those that look, like bonded.
Loyal. Yes.
Wow.
Like weird shit like that I'm like.
You wrote someone else down. Hold on. Oh, I loved. And I don't know if you added this because you must have watched their show too. Let me look in the book. Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart.
Oh, yeah. I didn't. But I know, like, I always thought their little union was so cool.
They have such a unit in their show, their cooking show. I don't know if it's still on. It was hilarious. But I loved how you wrote about,
Scorpio was the bond with them.
The bond with them, right? The Scorpio bond. And then you talked about the Kurt Cobain story and A Tale of Two Fish.
Can't you, did you love Kurt Cobain?
Loved Kurt Cobain. That's why I was so happy when I was like, oh my God.
So can't you see, I feel like most people are like Mr. Rogers and Kurt Cobain, but like they were both such soft, gushy, like feeling.
Yeah, compare the two, which I love because they do, when you had said in there, Pisces, they go one or two other ways. They're the most likely to be the CEO of some weird startup company, or they're the most likely to be in prison for serial killers in prison for some sort of. So talk about their two polarities, but yet they both had, talk about their signs. That little chapter. Give us a little synopsis of that chapter.
So they both had their sun in Pisces, and then they both had watering moons. So Kurt's was in Cancer, and Fred Rogers was in Pisces also. So he was a double Pisces, and they both had Earth risings. So like the crust to kind of keep them contained. And I think that, and then they both, I don't know if I'm sure you caught this part, they both had these crazy synchronistic, these people that each of them met that changed the course of their lives forever, that they had these major astrological synchronicities with, even if they never even knew that.
Wow. Wow. And who were those two people?
So for Kurt Cobain, it was his manager, Danny Goldberg, who wrote a biography about him that came out recently, like in the last couple of years. And they were very close. And then for Fred Rogers, it was when he was, there was a hearing where PBS was getting its funding slashed in half. It was getting cut in half from like $20 million to $10 million. And he went to the hearing to implore them to please not cut the funding. And the senator that there was actual, if you watch the Fred Rogers documentary, there was actual footage of this, and you can see Fred Rogers. It's so amazing because here's a guy who his whole life was to teach us that feelings are important, and that we need to be able to talk about them. And he says the same thing you love to say, which is you are perfect just the way you are. You need to adjust yourself. I mean, I say that too.
Thank you for comparing me to Fred Rogers.
Right? Best compliment ever.
Yes.
But so what's crazy is you're sitting there watching him and he's got tears behind his eyes. You can see him. Yeah. He's got that Taurus rising that's like, no wonder he was so good at teaching us all that, how to like control it and keep it contained like that.
Yes.
And the guy, so the guy who was listening to him, the judge, I guess it was, or maybe, no, I think it was a senator. I think it was like a Senate hearing for the funding. And the guy had his same, God, I can't remember it. It's in the book, but it was like they were both Pisces. They both had, I think the guy had a Taurus moon instead of a Taurus rising, but they had like two signs in common. Their birthdays, I think, were like 3 days apart or something. And the guy, the senator, said, I'm giving you the money. He said it on the spot. He they totally got each other. And it was this beautiful moment where everything changed.
That's what I hope I have. Someone out there to merge and then take the podcast to the next level out there. So, I mean, another Gemini sun, Virgo rising, Virgo moon.
Or who knows? Who knows? You know what I mean? Like it's because don't you have well, you were saying Pisces. I mean, we have certain signs that we just keep drawing to us. And obviously, I mean, an astrologer would be like for me, one of those signs is Scorpio. An astrologer would be like, yeah, that's because your MC is Scorpio. Yeah. You know, and it's like, sure. But I guess for me, this is what I was starting to say, where my editor kind of like, I didn't want to write a complex book because I knew how complex astrology books are, but I didn't necessarily want it to be quite as simplified, but I think she was right that this is what I feel like people aren't going to get it unless it's more simple. I feel like
they aren't.
If you chunk it down to just sun, if you don't even know your time of birth, just your sun and your moon, just learn your moon sign.
Your moon and your rising.
And your
in ancient astrology, rising is like the
I know. It rules the chart. Right.
It rules the chart.
Right. Well, and it's your first, I mean, it's a big deal.
It's yourself. It's your...
Right. But I feel like for people who don't know their time, at least learn your moon. You can be almost certain what that is. And if you're not sure, just read the description.
Or your
cuspy. I feel like when you're cuspy, you're cuspy.
And if you don't know your time, go off of 12 p.m. or
noon,
12 a.m.
Exactly. Do a noon chart. Right.
Yeah. Do a noon chart. That's now. So you're married now.
Yes.
So, and who did you marry? What are his astro digits?
He is. I mean, I adore him, but he is so interesting. He's your same. He's Abram's son. He's an Aquarius. He's January 31st. He's got a Taurus rising.
Oh, wow! You got both. Wow.
Right, and then a Leo. Taurus rising, Leo moon. So he's got the same moon as my dad, my brother Leo.
Oh, wow.
Leo is all through my family. Scorpio's all through my family. So at least this time I found someone with some Taurus too, because I always, Aquarius, which is my mother's sun sign, he's basically a conglomeration of both my parents.
Wow.
Which is part of why that's the kind of research I just think and I've seen
it's huge. So my grandma and I were born on the same day.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Which side? Maternal or paternal?
Paternal.
which I know I heard that you lost your dad 10 years ago and you
Yeah,
were
10
close
years
to
ago.
him, right?
I was very close to him. He was a Taurus, and I wish now I could find out what time he was. But I'm guarantee you he's a Virgo rising like me. Now that I know everything, I feel, but I don't know his time of birth. I wish we could
What was
like
his
look that
moon?
up. I don't know. I don't even know. I'm
Oh.
guessing the Taurus. I'm guessing a Virgo rising because I have no idea what time he was born.
Mm-mm.
You know, I wish we could find that out. There needs to be a system where
Oh.
you can just put that in someone's time, birth of time.
I know. My dad's dad died when my dad was 2, so I
You don't
don't
even
have.
know.
No, I would love to know. I've spent so much time trying to find it.
Maybe in a couple years of putting out there in the universe, someone's gonna make
Right,
I mean, we should make it, but I can't figure that out. Where you could just
right. No,
somehow get a system to everyone's time of birth.
just to have. Well, I feel like that is going to be the way that it's like. I think that that's the way data is going to be collected. Is if we have some big like site that takes in data. I feel like have you heard of this book? I just have been
A
reading
scheme of heaven. No, what's that about?
It's really awesome. So it is, the guy is a physicist. He has a PhD in physics, but he also has degrees in history and classics, like Roman, Greek history. So he has this crazy, like astrology has been this like dual love for him because it's numbers and statistics and probabilities and patterns, but it's also history and Roman, Greek history and all that stuff. So this book is basically, I mean, it's along the lines of what we're talking about trying to raise the vibration and make it more legitimate. It's very heady. It's very,
What's it called again?
A Scheme of Heaven.
A Scheme of Heaven. What have you gotten out of it so far?
I mean, first of all, I feel like it's explained. I'm not one of those people who is spatially oriented well.
Yeah.
Like for me to stop and think about how things are situated in space is not intuitive.
Me either.
Too, right? Yeah.
No.
And he explains it all in a way. I feel like after, having read about astrology for however long, I don't even, how old was I when I got into it? 35 years now, probably.
Oh my God.
I feel like I have he just builds it. He said he couldn't find anything that explained it well. And so that's why he decided to write it. And I feel like he anchors it in history. So I feel like I've learned a lot about like the ancient astrologers and what they even built on. It's just really interesting. I'm going to
have to read that.
Yet, but I'm so grateful that there are smart people coming out and saying, you guys, right?
Well, I think was it Bill Gates maybe that finally came out and said that he, or someone else, some big tech guy, that a few of them that they use astrology for. I think you can look it up. Bill Gates, that they've been using astrology for like their releases. There's a lot of people that have came out in like the high up tech world and companies that have been saying like we've actually been using astrologers, and a lot of celebrities too now too when like they're dropping record that's happening. They're using astrologers.
Yes, I hear that stuff all the time. I feel like that's what I mean. I feel like we're just trying to, there are a whole bunch of us, I think, living and dead, who are like trying to move this along and just like, come on already. There's so much resistance to it.
There's
though.
So much, but we're breaking that down. Do you have any other book ideas? Like, or do you have more coming to you now as astrology is ever evolving and your practice with it is?
The only book idea, and this is not something I've given really any thought to, but it is something I have it's floated through my mind, something about my, if not entirely, publishing parts of my journal, like writing a book that shows, because I feel like my growth process in this last few years, if you're writing, you're documenting a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Like, I've got dreams. I've got tons of I feel like, I don't know. And like I said, if part of my mission is to get people to journal and write, I feel like it would be a strong, supportive argument in favor of like growth.
That's what you tell a lot of your patients.
Totally.
So now you're currently in working psychology and do you do chart readings for people?
No, so I would not. You see in the book, and especially how Capricorn I am. I'm not an astrologer. I'm not an astrologer. So I don't hold myself out that way, but I do. I know my way around a chart. Obviously.
Yeah, but you don't do charts.
No, I mean, no, I know, like I have a good
Yeah, you
astrologer
know a
that
lot.
I
Yeah.
refer to, and cause I feel like I'm like that though. Like I used to see couples routinely, and there is a form of couples therapy that's newer and really well validated. And I feel like if I'm not certified in that, I don't want to take on a couple right now. I want
Yeah.
to get certified in that if I were going to, so like I would want to be an astrologer.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do chart
Yes.
readings.
Chart readings.
Yeah.
Hold on. This is again,
Okay.
one more time.
I know.
Remington, please. 10 minutes. I'm doing a recording. Lammy's down here. Come get him.
But you don't understand. This is a very big deal.
Versus Lammy. I know. I thought, let's see. Shh. I know. He must sense you. He must sense you. Right there. So what have you learned about yourself over this whole quarantine time?
I feel like I have a very, I think, kind of unpopular, like my experience of it has been different than a lot of other people's, but I feel like I was like extroverting and relating to an extent that was so unsustainable and exhausting. So I have been like, I hate to say it, but I've been grateful for that. And I
that's your Capricorn and your Taurus,
right?
You're just loving being in your peace in your environment.
Do you watch South Park? Did you happen to see the pandemic special?
I didn't see the pandemic special. My kid's father ruined me with South Park. He used to watch it every night, falling asleep for 4 years. Oh, gosh, what happened? What happened though? It was funny.
There was just a scene where when they went back to school, everybody else was so glad to be back around people, and Cartman was freaking out and just being like, "Oh my God, I forgot how much I hate this. I hate all of you so much. I'm gonna puke."
I would have.
It's like, oh my God, that's me.
That's people would never think, but that's such a Capricorn rising thing to like, because they have this hidden like dark sense of humor. Like listening to them talk, I would have never thought that you like set, but I'm like, oh duh, Capricorn moons really have this.
I'm not Capricorn moon.
I'm sorry, Capricorn rising.
Yeah, no, Capricorn it's rising. True though. That's the thing is that I love my friends. I love the people I love. I get a ton out of connection. But when I'm struggling, and like I told you I feel like the election showed me how much of it was that in particular. It wasn't not all there was, but I feel like that was like, holy shit. I feel like somebody just got off my chest. And that when that was all, not like the whole 4 years, but I don't even want to hear myself talk. You know what I mean? Like when I'm in that space, I'm like, just let this pass. It's like a storm. Like, just don't quote me on anything. Don't make me like say what I think about anything, because I'm not going to say anything that anybody is going to find useful, which is part of why I do think that if we hadn't been in this last 4 years, I'm not entirely sure I would be leaving my profession in the way that I am. I'm not leaving my profession, but I don't want to be a therapist in private practice.
So you don't. What do you want to do now? What's your
so originally I had been thinking about retreats, like I said, but in this time of COVID, I feel like that's not exactly it doesn't feel like quite the right time.
Yeah.
And I have enough people I'm still seeing that I'm fine for the time being.
Yeah.
But that is where this whole study thing occurred to me, because I was thinking like, well, fuck, I can't really like see people right now, but this is something I could do. I could like, that would be a way I could contribute and like spend time in a useful way. And
well, is it coming now? Because we're just coming out of Mars retrograde. Again, people listening, that was a couple months ago. So there's a lot of like restructuring your work in projects. Like now all of a sudden a new path of clarity, and you know what you need to do to get there.
Yep. But I actually am hoping that I have a feeling, like I said, that it's going to happen, but I feel like it's going to be such a giant undertaking, and I don't know that but it's sort of like, it's like if something sort of chooses you, you're like, oh, really? Okay. Like, I guess so.
Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Like there goes my calm life I'd been trying to establish, but I feel like that's the way it tends to happen.
That's how it goes. It goes the way it's supposed to go.
I don't tend to look for stuff. I'm not the kind of person who's like, what should I do? I tend to feel like I have too many things that I'm trying to do at once, and to, like I'm trying to discern what would be the best course of action, but I'm usually not at a loss for ideas.
As well, it finds you. Stacy, this has been amazing. We're getting to the end of our interview.
Oh, it went so fast.
It went so fast. Now, Stacy has been a good I wanted to say client. I'm so used to say client, coming on, friend, soul sister, interviewer, because she has listened. So she already had prepped on these questions at the end. She listened the whole way to the end. So let me ask you the first one. You know what's coming, the little childhood. Because she said before we got in here, she really got to think and really liked that. So if we could go back to little Stacy, young Stacy, where were you born?
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey? Jersey girl, I love Jersey. And at some point in your life, what would you say to her?
So I feel like the common answer that people would give is something like, it's going to be okay. Not that I don't think things are okay, but I think that what I would say is something like, you're not crazy.
I love that.
Like it really is, this sounds so cynical and dark, and I don't mean it to, but it's sort of like, it really is that bad. Like, I feel like I could see the dark, the pain, the like cracks, all the stuff that was so hard. And I feel like the people around me couldn't really hold it and couldn't so I felt crazy a lot, just seeing stuff that seemed like nobody else was seeing it. And I think if I could take that little girl, I would say, you're not crazy. You're onto something, but
you're totally gifted.
But you've got to learn how to like live with this in a way that people don't want to lock you up and flee.
Well, it seems like you did an amazing job with that. Not locking up and fleeing, but the opposite.
Thank you.
And leading in that way.
Thank you.
Now, what's the best piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
So there are two, I think, that we're competing. One wasn't directly given to me, because one is from Jung himself.
Yeah.
But the one from my friend Elizabeth, who's psychic, and I think she got this from somewhere else, but she told me, the universe rewards courage by removing obstacles.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I feel like I've thought of that a million times since.
Wow.
And I'm thinking about it now when I'm thinking, if I'm going to do research, that's the way I have to
believe it. You should probably write that down, that quote, write it down and look at it every day.
I have it written down.
Oh, good. Yeah.
My paper daytimer. I've got a paper daytimer.
I think I'm going to write it down and look at it every day.
Right? It's such a good quote. You should. So should, because you're like in that same zone of like, fuck, really? Okay, I'm going for it. Yeah, exactly.
1 minute at a time, honestly.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
It's just a single step. And then you wait and see, does this feel right? I've gone headlong. So have you. I can tell by stuff you've said, into shit that's wrong for me too many times. I feel like
too many.
Just take a breath. It's hard to slow down when you've got that kind of momentum, especially with my Mars and Sag.
Oh, yeah.
It's not what's your Mars in?
Pisces.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So you can, so for you, it's you've got your Virgo operating against it, right?
Oh my God. All the time. It's a battle. It's a fight.
But it's not a bad thing to have battles inside, because I feel like you come to better places. You know what I mean? When the things fight it out, I feel like it's living the struggle.
I love that. That could have been answered in number 3 question. What was the other piece of advice?
Which came from Jung, what I just said is very Jungian too. But the one that I love the most, my favorite Jung quote is, only what is truly oneself, actually, only what is really oneself has the power to heal. Wow.
Wow. I think is that in your book?
It is.
Yeah, because I thought it was. There's a lot of his quotes in there, which I love that.
He is so wise. I'm not a guru girl, but he really was an incredible.
And my teacher at Chujabava, that's who Nightlight Astrology, he's obsessed with him also.
Oh, really? Yeah. He's worlds he just wrote so much. Besides, he's such a deep thinker, but then he just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. So it's insane.
It's insane. Now, what piece of advice do you want to leave for our listening audience?
To be honest with you, the piece of advice that I feel like actually for your audience, probably not the right one, but the thing I always feel like I want to say is, learn your freaking moon sign.
Yes.
Why is that so complicated? I feel like seriously, friends of mine who have my book, friends that I'm like, we'll be talking and I'm like, so what's your kid's moon sign? Like they'll be talking about their kid and like they're acting up or something. I'm like, so what's his moon sign? And they're like, wait, what? What's a moon sign? I'm like, you're my friend. You didn't even read far enough in there to like learn. You like, I should have titled it "Learn Your Moon Sign."
Learn your moon sign. That can be your another book, or come out with like a Cliff Note one. Learn your moon sign, bitches.
Right? It's so important. It's just so. I feel like it's right up there with the sun. I feel like it's like, you know.
That's why I tell everyone the sun, moon, and rising. You need all of them. Those are like your social security number. You need to know those three things.
Totally.
If you don't want to go through the whole chart, or it's too complicated, at least learn that.
Totally.
Now tell us all where they can find you and where they can get this book, everything. Tell us.
My website, there are two ways to get there because Psychstrology is hard to say and spell. But you can go through psychrology.com or you can go to stacydickerphd.com and it will reroute you to Psychstrology. So it's PSYCHSTROLOGY or STACYDICKERPHD.
And this will be in the Cliff Notes. Head over to my Instagram. It will be all over the Instagram if you want to see that. And it is really good. It was a great book. I actually brought it when I went to Florida and I read it. It was like it was a great, easy read. It was perfect. It was like, and again, I love that you took it at the angle that I want to take this in and that I love. Thank you for being here, Stacy. This has been an amazing interview.
Thank you for letting me. Thank you for taking your time and thank your kids for giving you up for this time.
Thank you for being patient.
Oh God, of course.
And thank you to my listening audience for being patient too. I like to keep it real. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll edit it out. We'll see how it goes. But thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope everyone has a fabulous week. Please, if you want to be on the show, you have any comments, please email me, thehairhealerpodcast@yahoo.com. Check me out on Instagram at thehairhealer1111 and follow me on the Facebook page, The Hair Healer Podcast Facebook. I hope everyone has a fabulous week. Thank you and goodbye.